we can do by taking an effort. I know some of us don't necessarily get to the masjid, but we can do salah as a team in the home.
Yeah,
We can put our youngsters, boys in the front and say, this is your opportunity to let us hear your Quran. I think dads can take the lead also.
for sure.
I think sisters can feel pride in their leader being their husband or their son. I think this is pride. I don't think it's submission. I think it's pride. We're submitting to God. We're not submitting to anybody else.
Right.
And so doing salah together, doing salah in time, doing salah with understanding, and really doing what I call the excitement about salah. Excitement comes when we realize it's an opportunity to make up, it's an opportunity to talk with the one that I should be talking with. And putting everything aside when that happens, not our cell phones, not the need to go to somewhere else. It really should be Allah's time. It's a bit like coming in and saying, all of my time is creation's time, but this is creator time.
Oh, nice, nice. So let's, in terms of, let's say, checklist, point number 2, salah. What could be number 3 now?
Number 3, I think, is really the book that has been always here, but somehow being ignored. And of course, I mean the Quran.
Okay.
I mean, I can tell you from my personal experience, when I did not understand much Arabic, I used to see Arab brothers and others who understood Arabic shedding tears, whereas I was standing completely unaware of what's going on. So I think the effort to understand Quran, also this is a golden opportunity to make a connection with the Quran also. We have Allah Ta'ala has said, وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِلذِّكْرِ فَهَلْ مِن مُدَّكِرٍ. Allah Ta'ala said, I have made the Quran easy. Will you now pay attention? I think that's a very powerful reminder that Allah wants us to connect with this book. We are stressed out because of COVID. We are stressed out because our job situations maybe not so well. Some of us have lost family members. Some of us are just generally stressed because of the way the world has worked out in the last 2 years, 3 years. Quran is a wonderful resource when it comes to the problems that we're facing. And I don't mean some magical answers. I'm meaning really understanding the stories of the great human beings, the prophets of God, and seeing how much they went through. Stories of prophets, after all, Allah has described as the best of stories. If me and you don't sound excited about these stories, I'm pretty doubtful that my children will be.
Right.
If I don't sound excited about reading this book, if I don't seem to have any particular link with this, not that I'm doing this to link others with it, I think I need to link with it myself. Whenever I see somebody saying my son or my daughter does not take an interest in it, I usually want to see how much interest are you taking in it.
Right.
Because if these are young children, they are directly taking from me and you what is important, then of course change their mind as they grow older. But I'm talking about the very early years when they're looking at us to see what is important in my life, what should be important.
Right.
So I think Quran is a beautiful way of reconnecting with God's word. And I don't necessarily mean to say in any particular sequence. I mean, sometimes it's just chapters of the Quran that are of whole deal of interest. Sometimes it's stories of the prophets, as I mentioned. Sometimes it's individual problems that are a concern. So there can be a whole lot of reasons to connect with the Quran. But the biggest reason is that this is a book there is no doubt in it, as the Quran says.
Right.
That this is a book in which there is no mistakes. This is a book in which there are powerful lessons for human beings. So I think Quran definitely has to be point number 3.
Now, what about something like ikhlaq or ikhlas? Where would you rank that?
So sincerity, very good point. When hadith collections start, the first hadith usually is the famous hadith called innamal a'malu binniyat, that the weight of amal actions are dependent on the intention. So I think intention ought to really be the point 1 here. When we start Ramadan, it's a good idea to say, what do I actually want from Ramadan?
Oh, okay.
What do I want?
Right.
Yes, iftar. Yes, tarawih. Yes, the feeling that I am able to control myself. But what is the purpose of all of this?
Right.
And if the purpose of all of this is defined at the beginning, the reason is that Allah Ta'ala says, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا كُتِبَ I won't say in the Arabic because I don't remember it. But Allah Ta'ala has said in Baqarah, O you who believe, the fasting period or the fasting was given to you just like it was given to people before you.
Okay. Okay.
And then Allah Ta'ala ends that ayah by saying, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. And these are prescribed because Allah wants you to be closer to God.
Right.
So I think if that can be defined, it's literally like it's almost something that can be written down on the house on a wall where everybody can see it. Guys, the purpose of Ramadan is to come close to God. Surely being angry with each other can't be a part of it.
Right.
Surely describing others who are having a hard time, backbiting, can't be improving the quality of my fast or my relationship with Allah. It's almost like a check point for the self. Is this what I am about to do? Is this pleasing to God? I know it's difficult, but it can become a defining moment in one's life. I actually think of everything as pleasing or displeasing to God. It's a very high state of Iman,
Right.
but it can be done. And we
Okay.
can try.
For sure.
So I think the answer to your question would be intention, definition at the beginning, purpose of Ramadan, and checking the self in the middle. Not being shy to say, I've lost it. Today I was not on my best behavior.
Well, that's the point of, I guess, this episode, isn't it? Is that how can we get away from being Ramadan on automatic, in the sense that, okay, it's just Ramadan, I fast, I pray, go to sleep, repeat, rinse and repeat all over again. So with that sincerity, I think that's a huge thing, right? To kind of just check yourself. Now, aside from having that mental state, being mindful of being present in Ramadan, that I'm going to have a good intention. Your intention is just to be a better person, to be a better Muslim. What else can someone do? Maybe let's try for a top 7 list. This is we were joking off air with producer Arif how we can be the 7. What is it? The 7 habits of a highly productive Muslim. I'm sure there's some copyright issue in there, but let's take that for what it's worth. So what I think we've covered now 5. Sincerity being, or intention being, the 5th. What could be number 6 now?
I think, Brother Mushtaq, it's important also to be careful with what we are putting inside our bodies.
Nutrition.
The nutrition aspect of it. For many years, Ramadan has become, almost as you mentioned at the beginning, a period of deprivation, fasting, and then feasting. And really forgetting the very important aspect of this body is the one that's going to expect it to be alert in Taraweeh. This is the same body that will expect to get up at Fajr and be able to pay attention to what the Imam is saying. It's the same body that will let me control my temper.
Yeah.
It's the same body that will allow me to go to the masjid.
Right.
Or to be able to play with my son and my daughter and not say, well, I'm hungry, so I can't.
Right. Or I'm sleepy.
So we have these 3 challenges in Ramadan. There's no question. One is the challenge of, as you mentioned, sleep. The other is the challenge of energy. And the third is the challenge of nutrition.
Yeah.
And I would say nutrition probably is the key to having a good sleep routine and even a good energy management.
Right.
What do I mean by nutrition? By nutrition, I mean food that is supposed to provide for the body without harming it. And this might sound very strange to say, how can food harm us? Well, remember, water is essential for life, but people drown in water.
Okay.
Remember, if you overbreathed, you're only breathing oxygen,
Yes.
you will actually feel dizzy. Don't try it at home, but it's not something that's recommended. Which means there is the element of excessiveness in everything. And food is no exception.
Okay.
Quality of food should really be defined by the nutritious value of food, not by the caloric value of the food. What has happened to food over the last 10 years is that shelf life has become more important than human life. And so I do emphasize, please look at things that are coming out of wrappers and packets and bottles. Don't emphasize things that are made in plants. Emphasize on things that have come from plants.
Whoa. Okay.
Which means an apple versus apple juice.
Okay.
Very big difference in the nutrition of the two.
Yes.
Apple juice is simply sugary water with some essence. And then there is the element, and I'm not dissing any nutrition, a food company, but there are people who will sell you stuff and use all the buzzwords to make sure you buy them, like freshly squeezed juice.
Right.
How can somebody freshly squeeze juice if it's come from another country?
Mm.
It's not freshly squeezed. Maybe it was when it was squeezed, not now.
Yeah.
But these are things I think. So to make it more realistic, look for things that are, as I said, more in their natural state, not things that have been changed and processed and preserved, because those things have largely lost their nutritious value. They're
Right.
definitely calorie rich, there's no question about it,
Mm.
but they're not nutritious. And so when they're not nutritious, they will not really support the function of the body to do the things that will help you have a good Ramadan.
Got it.
And this is where sleep and energy levels are very, I mean, this is not a podcast for going over these things in detail, but I hope I've given the audience enough thinking material to say, think carefully. What you're putting in your mouth is literally deciding what kind of life you're going to have.
Fascinating. Interesting. I mean, it's a very valid point. You have to think of nutrition, especially during Ramadan, where you are kind of battling yourself just to have that energy to get yourself through the day, right? And make your day meaningful, more than just, trying to cover for your lack of sleep.
I mean, I'd say something, I'm sorry to cut you off, but
Mhm.
do not consider hunger to be a bad thing. It's
Right.
one of the most powerful survival mechanisms that Allah has created.
Mhm.
And think of all the great human beings of past, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, who said the human being has not been given a worse vessel than his stomach to fill. It's a
Oh.
very powerful statement.
Mm.
He said, enough is for the son of Adam to eat a few morsels of food to keep his back straight. And if he really wants to, he can eat 1/3 food, 1/3 water, and leave 1/3 empty.
Mm.
I don't think we can take Ramadan out of this context just because we feel hungry.
Right.
I think that hadith still applies.
Oh. So now let's come to a potential end. Number 7. What could be the 7th tip for our reviewers, parents and youth alike, as to how to have a productive Ramadan?
I think, Brother Mushtaq, what I would say is family time should not be confined to watching movies.
Mm-hmm.
Family time should also not be confined to um, people just sitting around a table eating. I'm not in any way dissing it. I'm not underestimating the importance of sitting and eating together. I think it is important. But I think it's important also to have some family time where some educational element of Ramadan is brought in, like a motivational story. We used to do little arts and crafts things with children. So, how about if you draw something that's related to Ramadan?
Right.
How about if you draw something that you like to draw to show your family what you have been doing recently? Could be a school project. It could be something they just like to draw. Like I remember somebody drawing a new moon. They were waiting for Eid, big time. I remember also people who were drawing the clothes they would like to wear in Eid. There's nothing wrong with having a bit of fun time. I think our children should not be made to feel that this is somehow non-fun time.
Yeah.
This is just you stay hungry. I mean, I've heard this from children. This is not time to have fun. That's unfortunately coming from usually the company they're keeping. I think it's a time to have fun, halal fun, fun that does not involve making fun of somebody, fun that does not involve disobeying Allah in some form, like lying. We often forget watching things that are clearly things that are harmful to the soul and to the body should not be a part of a Ramadan. I know this sounds like a don't do list, but I'm saying being careful with what we're putting in the body is not confined to the body only, it's also the soul. Remember, it's the soul we are really trying to nourish in this month.
Yes.
Body nourishment is not a big part of this program.
Right.
If anything, body cleansing is a part of this Ramadan thing. I'm sure you've heard that fasting has come in a big way into the secular world in the last 10 years, when people have discovered the benefits of deprivation. I call it control of desires. I also call it postponement of gratification. These are all very powerful principles that people that do not necessarily believe in religious terminology have recognized.
Right.
So I think there's nothing wrong with the family enjoying this time together, despite the fact they have deprived themselves for a few hours from food. I mean, really, Brother Mushtaq, why are we so dependent on food anyway? Isn't this some modern industry that has worked itself over time to make us feel unless we eat, we can't be happy? Unless we eat a certain thing, we definitely can't be cool. Unless we consume a certain liquid, we can't surely function normally. I'm not going to go into the details, but I think you get the point. So
Let's not mention any brands.
I think this is really something we need to break ourselves out of. And I think Ramadan is a wonderful time to do it.
Definitely.
And I would recommend to everybody, look carefully at your eating patterns. Look carefully at the consumption of electronics that we are doing.
Yeah, video
A lot
games.
of us are destroying our ability to function well because so much of our time, and remember, time is something Allah has sworn by in the Quran.
Yeah.
So we cannot underestimate the value of. So I think time management is one of the other things I would say at the end, is for our audience to think carefully about how we manage our time. We have these 5 long distance calls, prayers, as I call them in the
Yes.
beginning, to remind us. We also have the Quran to tell us all these wonderful stories where people who did not use their time well found themselves on the adverse side of things.
Right. Right.
So I think time management, and last but not the least, is fun time with the children. So they don't think that there's some kind of mini jail that they're in for this month. I think it should sound exciting without being boring. I think it should look like we all have a plan. I highly recommend something like a checklist. I'm a big checklister from the beginning.
Okay.
I find things that get written, things get done. If all of us can see what we did today, it's much more practical to say, so how come my 3 salahs are missing? How come I didn't smile all day? How come I haven't given any charity?
Yes.
How is it that I haven't made somebody who is feeling not good feel good? I'm not saying you have to do it like a regimen, but I'm saying it does bring something more easily to mind if you have a plan in front of you.
Right.
I hope that's helpful.
It's been very helpful. And I think we got 2 bonus tips out of this as well. So we went from 7 to 9 tips overall. Let me go now to producer RF. Did we have any questions during this live stream, or are we good? Okay, so we're good. So I think we'll wrap up. This has been a very informative session. And the whole concept of this session was just how can we have a productive Ramadan? And we went through 9 very powerful tips, everything from the Quran to an intention on how you're going to use the month of Ramadan, to nutrition, to then ending it off with having quality time with your family, with your children, and with yourself. You know, this is all about a month of self introspection.
If I can just say one last thing.
Yeah, please.
Stop. Forgiveness should be a big part of this month. Forgiving others and forgiving people that have perhaps transgressed against us. It's a beautiful time really to take maximum advantage of Allah Ta'ala's open door policy in this month.
Mm-hmm.
So forgiveness for people. Because I've known from my own life and others where people can do a lot of things that are very good, but somehow can't seem to get rid of that anger, that hidden, if you like, feeling of jealousy that they've had in their heart. I think we have to cleanse our heart from these things because it's a beautiful time.
Well, there you go. I think we'll end on that note alone. Forgiveness. So, Dr. Zaihan, thank you so very much for coming.
Pleasure.
Thank you so very much for being part of this.
It's a pleasure.
And thank you so very much for providing us all these powerful tips.
Jazakallah khair.
All right. We'll end the show, this week's live stream. This is Brother Mushtaq representing Happy Strong Family, and Ramadan Kareem to you all.